Good evening, everybody. Yeah, the milk's fine. Right. Right. I did one of these over the weekend. This is a live stream. That's why this seems even more rambly and uncoordinated than it normally does. Yeah, it's fine. Right, so on Saturday I did a live stream and it went better than I was expecting it to. So I thought, do you know what? I've done that now. So let's. Oh, hello, Bogdan. So what? I need to get into the habit of Ella. So I thought let's do one midweek. Now this one's going to be a little bit different in that from the last one in that it's just going to be myself this time. I'm not going to be throwing this one open to other people. I think that's more kind of like a end of the weekend kind of a thing, isn't it? Plus, I kind of don't want this to go on for like 4 odd hours. I'm really glad that it did go on as long as that, because that was a bit of a fun night. But this is going to be a little more condensed. So, what's with the name? Probably asking, what's that about? Why have you called this kitchen sink? Well, some concept. That's not quite the right word. Anyway, some background to this one. I have, for a little while now, wanted to do a video that basically rips off Aqvavitae's Recycled reviews. And if you're not familiar with what those are, it's basically a middle-aged man in Glasgow stands in front of his bins with a camera and talks about the whiskey that he's drank. And he talks about like the empties as he puts them into a recycling bin. And I thought that's a good format worth harvesting. And I am not the only person that thought that, because loads of other people have kind of taken a pot shot at it, but they've not really stuck at it. For the obvious reason that it's his thing, you know? So I thought, all right, well, I fancy having a go with that. One, because I don't review everything that I drink in my personal life, because it's sitting down and filming something it's effort, it is work. I know it just seems like, you know, the fantastic life to live. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of is, but it is also actual work. So with that in mind, I thought it would be good to kind of collate what I've had through kind of like empty bottles, cans, that kind of thing, and kind of talk about them from memory rather than a first impression. It's a last impression. I'm trying to see if it's really made an impression at all. The reason it's called kitchen sink is because under my kitchen sink there is a cabinet, a space with doors on it, really, and that's where I keep my recycling. That's the beginning and the end of that name. That's all that is. I had initially had a plan to do something that was a bit closer to what Roy does, which is standing at a bin and talking about what he has. There's a couple of reasons I can't do that. One of them is I don't have a mortgage. So because I'm in rental accommodation, the recycling facilities are pitiful. I don't have any wheelie bins, I don't have any recycling boxes, anything like that. So you've got the communal bin situation, and then it becomes that weirdo who's talking at the bottle bank, mummy, who is that? And like, how do I dial 999? It's that kind of a situation. So I didn't want to do that. So I thought, do you know what? Fuck it, we'll do it live, and I'll just collate some of the stuff that I've got and talk about it. Tea break. So that's what the premise of tonight is. I've no idea how long or short this is going to be. This might be 10 minutes. This might be 2 hours. I don't know. We're still getting to the grips of how long things take for this. I may need to shoot off at some point to let Mo out. He's currently disappeared, actually. He was there. He was sunning himself by the radiator. I think he's gone back to sleep now, so hopefully he'll let us get through this. So let's kick off with the actual talking about booze and liquor. Now, I want to quickly say as well, this is an assortment that I've got off to my right, your left, of various things. It's not just whiskey and it's not just beer. We've got some beer, we've got some cider. There's a Cremant in there, a bit of excitement, a bit of change. So yeah, and every now and then I'll I'll drink some tea because, you know, give the Americans a quaint Englishman, I suppose. Or as quaint as I get dressed like a beef Wellington. But anyway, so we'll start off with something that I was drinking on the last stream, which was the topic, sort of the focus of the topic there, which is about strength and how much is too much when it comes to the strength of a beer. This is New Barnes Plain Dark Beer, Strong Export Stout, 11%. I talked briefly about this on the last live stream, or more really just kind of gushed about it. New Barnes are doing some fantastic work at the minute, and this was a killer beer. I am sorry to the people that couldn't get their hands on this. And I know I'm rubbing it in by saying, you did kind of miss out a little bit. Sorry. Good evening, Jake. I would imagine they'll do this again at some point because it was good. It was a good beverage. Molasses, coffee. It was rich, a little bit bitter, a little bit sweet as well. It did not seem like 11%, which I wasn't expecting. I was at least expecting it to be one of those beers where it's kind of like, oh, that's got a kick to it, you know? And this wasn't. This was a dangerous liquid. Being dangerously close to flammable as well, I suppose. So, you know, there's that edge to it. But yeah, it illustrated a point more than I thought it would, in that it just went down like silk. And it was a delightful beer. And I would, if I could, buy it again. There might be a couple of under-the-radar bottle shops in Edinburgh that still have some. So I might have to go out hunting. Because if memory serves as well, this didn't cost too much. I think it was about £6, £7, something like that. It's a fair bit for beer, but, you know, you've got to remember, I mean, this is as strong as a wine. So, well, not quite, but, you know, not far off at this point. So, yeah, enjoyed that. Also, did cover this briefly during the last live stream. I should say the other live stream, really, because there was only one other. I love New Barnes' design aesthetic. I love that they're going with this kind of like retro, font-heavy style. I'm big into it. I love kind of like the vintage contrasting colors, that kind of like brutalist style they've got going on. There's another brewery called, I think they're called Play Brew. Only recently discovered them. When I say discovered them, I mean learned they exist. I've not actually tried any of theirs yet, and they're another one that has this kind of like vintage aesthetic down to a T. I'd argue even better than New Barnes, because New Barnes is kind of like trying to toe the line between like modern and vintage. With Play, they're definitely just kind of like, now we want it to look like it came straight out of the 70s, and it does. It looks like it's come out of like a merchandise page out of like a 70s copy of the Beano or something like that. You know, it's childish and colourful, and I love how it looks. I'm going to put this over here so I don't accidentally cover something twice. I don't think I'd be that stupid. What should we do next? You know, we've got a lot of beer, so I'll do another beer. Why not? This is a Tiny Rebel. Something I did not cover on the channel at all. I think I might have covered this during somebody else's live stream. I don't remember if it would have been Jake's or Harry's. I distinctly remember cracking this open, and I think a couple of people were like, are you not done with Snowballs yet? This is a Snowball IPA. And I'll read some of the descriptors. So they've got eye hazy, nose coconut/lemon, and taste coconut/tropical/creamy. Which doesn't sound great, if I'm going to be completely honest. Those are not alluring. But I picked this up mainly because I'd done like 3 videos talking about Advocaat and Snowballs. So I thought, you know what, a 4th one would be funny. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, do you know what? Nah, I'm snowballed out, so I just decided to have it like as a drink. And I'm glad I did, because it was pretty underwhelming, I'm not going to lie. Coconut is one of those flavors in a beer. I think we were talking about this last stream as well, quite heavily. Coconut is one of those flavors in beers where it gets screwed up way more than it gets nailed. I don't know if maybe Bounty Bars have just kind of like unexpectedly set a high bar for coconut flavor, because it is just a fistful of coconut delicately wrapped in chocolate. But we do kind of expect that like big explosion of coconut. And there's a lot of beers that do not nail it, and this is one of those ones that did not nail it. I also don't quite get what sort of snowball they were going after, because on first glance, they make it sound like they're talking about the drink with Aqvavitae, because they say we love snowball cocktails at Christmas, but then there's coconut in it, which makes me think they mean like the snowball treat instead. So it's just like, could you not make your mind up, and then did you accidentally brew both and then smash them together? Well, I don't quite get what happened with that. It's calling itself a Snowball IPA. It's called Welcome to the Party Pal. I don't think I even mentioned the name, because it's not just me, that's a rubbish name, right? That's not interesting. The artwork on the can is pretty boring as well. In some respects, it hits similar beats in that it is a text-heavy can, but it also doesn't. And you know what I mean? It's a subjective thing, but it just doesn't. It feels like they had an afternoon to knock that out, and it was done lovelessly. And there's not really much in the way of like information on the actual can itself. It was okay. As an alcohol delivery system with something a little bit odd, it was all right. But wouldn't pick it up again, which I think is fine, because I don't think this is like a regular release. I'm pretty sure this was like a seasonal one-off for Crimble time. In fact, it does mention Christmas on the back, doesn't it? So yeah, that would make sense. Tea break. How is everyone actually? How's everyone spending this Tuesday afternoon? Last I checked, there was 2 breaking news stories today. I won't talk about them because apparently I ruin the world when I talk about politics. So I'll leave that for other people's streams. Why ruin your own work when you can ruin someone else's, right? So I'll leave that off. Just sucking some tea off of my finger, don't mind me. That's a traditional British ceremony. Anyway, I'll move off of beer for a minute, and we'll talk about this. This is not a whiskey. It's nearly a whiskey. I've talked about these about 6 months ago now. Hi, Chris. It's Yorkshire tea. Just the standard Yorkshire tea with like the painting on it. I have a story about getting some free Yorkshire tea. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. Remind me about it once I'm done talking about this, about the free Yorkshire tea tale. This is a 50ml sample of, I think the technical classification is aging liquid. It's basically you've started whiskey and it's not yet hit 3 years and a day. So even though it's on its way to being whiskey, but it's not quite there yet. It doesn't meet the legal definitions. There are some world whiskey classifications where you can get away with 2 years. Scotch whiskey is not one of them. 3 years and a day. Has to be. This is from Lindores Abbey. This is the first of 4 samples that I have of their maturing whiskey, or maturing liquid, I should say, that I've finished. Because I don't want them to, I don't want them to end, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it. And having such small samples of them, that is difficult. Lindores Abbey, if anyone from Lindores Abbey is or ends up watching this, please release some of your whiskey now that it's old enough. Please, for the love of God. I am waiting with bated breath to get my hands on a bottle, because the fact that this wasn't even 3 years old, and the fact that it tasted as absolutely knock it out the park amazing as it did, if this was actual whiskey, it would have gotten my whiskey of the year, which is pretty incredible. This stuff blew me away. I've had a bit of a journey with Lindores. God, what was that? I first encountered Lindores Abbey when I was working last year, and I first encountered their Aqvavitae, which is a bit of a, how to describe Aqvavitae? It's a liqueur. It's not really a liqueur. It's a spirit maybe like herbs and spices, but not in the same way that you would like a gin or an aquavit. It's its own beast. I cannot do justice to its description, so do you know what? Go Google it at some point. They will tell you better than I can. And I came across it, I was like, right, what in God's name are you going to do with this stuff? We played around with a few things, got a couple of cocktails to work with, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Had I known at the time what I've realised now, that they made a canny choice in going down that route for having a product. Most distillers, when they're starting up, they have a product that kind of like fills the gap between having whiskey. Most will go down the gin route because it's cheap and easy and people are loving on gin. It's a very canny move that they didn't do that, because had they just made a gin, it would be another gin in a saturated market and it would get lost and nobody would know it was there, and it would just get buried. Because they did the Aqvavitae, it's unique to them, and it also ties into the story and the mythos and the history of the distillery itself. So that was a wise move by them. After that, I tried the New Make Spirit, and that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. It's won awards and all sorts. It's great stuff. I recommend picking up a bottle. If you are a vodka drinker and you're wanting to dip a little toe into the water of whiskey, New Make is your friend with that, because it is basically whiskey vodka, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it. It's super flavorful vodka as well, so it's kind of like your next step up in vodka. There's going to be people that are really pissed off I'm calling it vodka or associating with vodka at all. It is and it isn't, that they have, like, in the same way that like gin and aquavit kind of crash into each other but don't really. They're distinctly different, but also there's enough similarity to be like, oh, you've tried this guy, have you tried this guy? It's that kind of a thing I'm trying to say. So please, nobody send me any letter bombs or anything. But yeah, back to this. There's 4 samples in the pack, and I distinctly remember the one that I was looking forward to the most was the peated, and it was not my favourite. My favourite was this one. It's a Therion Virgin French Oak Cask, and I adored this for the same reason that I adored the Bladnoch 10-year-old. It's full of rich wood, spice, vanilla. It's so characterful. It's a little bit sharp, but of course it is. It's not finished yet. It's on its way. This was an opportunity for us to try what the whiskey might someday become. It's not there yet. It's still got some time on the clock. But as almost like a debutante ball for their aging liquid, this made a fantastic impression. And I didn't want to finish it. I wanted to cling on to some of this until they released their whiskey. And their whiskey became whiskey just a breath before Christmas. I was like, wow, they're going to release it. And then it didn't happen. Never materialized for some reason. They'll have their reasons. It might just be that they've gone, do you know what? It's made it this far. Let's give it a bit longer. I think it needs it. So, there'll be a choice behind it, a decision, because they certainly take their casks very seriously. And you can tell based off of the caliber of what you've got here. I don't like using the word caliber too much because I just sort of turn into everybody else at that point. But for want of a better way of saying it, the caliber that comes off that. But yeah, that was fantastic. You can't get them anymore. Like I said, I am waiting on them releasing their proper whiskey. I do still have a couple of samples over there that I'm kind of like saving for a rainy day at the minute. So that gives you some idea of kind of like the impression that this has made on me. Love the stuff. We're going to be talking about tea, weren't we, briefly? Right, my Yorkshire tea story. 6 years ago? Yeah. No, longer than that. 7 years ago. Shit. Was it 7? It was 7. It was 7 years ago. I was applying to be a teacher. Shock horror, I know. Through the Teach First program. And I did quite well up until it came to they had these 2 tests that Michael Gove had put in. and they were sort of universally people in the industry all kind of came together and went, yeah, these tests are evil. They're not nice at all. Oh, hello. Oi, oi. Which Daniel could this be? Of whom do we speaketh? Yeah, so I was going to be going down to become a teacher. Long story short, it didn't happen because I flunked it was a mental math test. Wasn't good. Wasn't great. But anyway, went down on the train, and on the way back up, I got a cup of tea on the train, and they were serving Yorkshire tea train, and it wasn't great. Nothing to do with Yorkshire tea whatsoever. And I tweeted them, and I like had one of those, like, I was taking the piss. I tagged Yorkshire tea because they had this thing at the time which was hashtag share your brew or something stupid like that. You know, you take a photo of your cup of tea and go, hey, Yorkshire tea, yay! It's free advertising for them, isn't it? And I tweeted them saying, it was a bit weak. And they went, we're sorry. If you message us, do you know what? I'm going to try and find the email, actually, because I just remembered I really took the piss with this. Normal format will resume in a moment. This is totally off the cuff. I might not have it anymore, but do you know what? We'll see. Yorkshire tea. Let's have a look. Can I find it through 7 years worth of it's buried under Morrison's spam and all sorts of crap. Nah, I might not even have it. But basically, I sent an email to them, which was a complete piss take. And it was like done in the third person, and I wrote it as if I was like a annoyed lord on like my estate who was like, you know, this was the, you know, the end of the world kind of a thing. And they went, okay, well, we'll send you like a free box of tea. And I was like, score. And I was expecting like one of those like little ones, you know, like 40 tea bags, and it was like, you know, thank you very much, shut up, never go on Twitter again kind of a thing. They sent me 240 fucking tea bags through the post. It was massive, this thing. I was set for tea for the year. That was the entire story. There are bits in that story that are better if I could read the email back to you, because I remember that was a belter of a piss take, and the fact I got free tea out of that. I had a career as a troll. Never really, didn't, yeah, should have gone down that road. Would have been more suited. It's lovely, isn't it? It is M&S Hollywood, like Paul Hollywood. They don't make them anymore. They did recolors of these, weirdly. They did these ones, which are gorgeous, like 20s, like sort of Gatsby design. They're beautiful. And then they recolored them so that they were just like single color. So they had like a red one, a blue one, a yellow one, or a green one. I was like, why have you done that? That's so much gaudier. Why did you do that? And they're discontinued. You can't find them anymore. I actually dropped one of these saucers and glued it back together because I really fucking like these, and I don't want them to go anywhere. Talk about Aberdeen / UA. I'm here now. Bring us closer together. Aberdeen is a place in Scotland. My overriding memory is quite nice macaroni pies, quite violent seagulls, and then I moved to Edinburgh. No, in all seriousness, I have a big place in my heart for Aberdeen. I never left Aberdeen on bad terms, as a lot of other people have done. They go to Aberdeen, they get their degree, they linger there for a couple of years, they move to Edinburgh, they realise Edinburgh is ridiculously expensive, they move to Glasgow, get married, have kids, and die. That's kind of the life cycle of Scotland cities. it would be funny if it wasn't so depressingly accurate. I haven't gotten to the jumping over the border to Glasgow bit yet. I think I would have done it by now if I was going to, because this year I could have saved a fucking fortune. Because I've been furloughed so much. You know, money's still coming in. Technically speaking, I don't need to be here. You know, I could have just moved back home and saved it all up. I kind of wish I'd done that. That would have been the clever thing to do, but I didn't do the clever thing because I'm not very clever. Look at me. I should get back on with the format, shouldn't I? Because I've wasted enough time talking about tea bags and my trolley past and Aberdeen and teacups and seagulls. Right. Let's move on to this. Back on a beer. Harry, Blue Nose Beer Reviews, is a brewer. And he works for a brewery. That's how brewers generally work. And for Christmas, he sent me some goodies, which is very nice of him. You know, I still actually need to cover one of them. I owe him a review at some point he sent me some apple vodka and he sent me some beer as well. And I drank all the beer quite quickly because I like a trad ale. I do. Traditional ales get a big slagging a lot of the time. And how I see them is, if you're going for food, you've got like sashimi tuna and you've got your mum's cottage pie. They're both great, but they both serve radically different purposes. And trying to compare the two is worthless, is fruitless, is stupid. So you can have fantastic trad ales. In fact, Jake today did a review of Fuller's Extra Special Bitter. It's one of those like shelf staples, probably one that you might walk past or you might not think twice about. It's a good beer. So he sent me the 4. I'm not going to talk about all 4, but this is one of the ones that stood out to me, and it was the Currahee. I'm not quite sure. Currahee. Ramsbury 506, and it was the blonde, 5%. For whatever reason, this one stood out to me as the best of the bunch. I liked all of them, and I'm not just saying that because, you know, I know Harry. I did say to him, you know, if I don't particularly like one of them, you know, I'll let you know. But luckily, they were all grand. They were all good beers. But this one kind of stood out because it was like it was doing a bit more of a dance than the other ones, whereas the other ones kind of like hit one note well. This one hit 2 or 3. So it was quite hoppy, a little bit resinous, quite bright, and then suddenly went a bit fruity. I really enjoyed it. It's my first time trying anything from Ramsbury. I've been meaning to get round to it for a while. Now, as it turned out, I didn't need to bother, I guess, because they got dropped on my door one day, and I was like, oh, lovely. But, you know, I'll read out a bit of the spiel as well. So, blonde beer, this American 506th Parachute Regiment motto, can't read, is Currahee. Again, that word I'm not quite sure how to pronounce, which means stand alone. This beer does exactly that. Yeah, cannot disagree with that. It's our tribute to the men stationed on the land where we now grow the barley used to brew this exceptional beer. So there we go, a bit of a story behind that as well. You know, I didn't even realise that's my first time reading the waffle on this. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable beer. If it's available near you, pick some up. I liked it. Oh, got a couple more comments. I'm going to put this down here. Give us a tour of your clothes rack. Also, I traditional ales, ambers, what I live on. But if you want an underrated bad red beer, it's all about red brown ales. Ooh, not sure I agree. Oh, sorry, underrated / bad. Right, sorry, I thought you were meaning all of them are bad. No, that's not what you're saying. That's clearly not what you're saying with your words. I need to learn to read, don't I? I should give that degree back at some point. Tour of the clothes rack. There's a pillowcase there. There's some trousers. There's some more trousers. That's that woman whose name I've forgotten again. You know the one. That's a scarf. The end. Yeah, I need to turn. Oh, there's a tea towel. You might just be able to see that as well in the background. A good ale is like a Highland whiskey to me. I'm trying to think of some cask finished. Oh, what's it called? Uladu? The one that Harveston do. I think it's Uladu, and they do a few different age terms. I think they're done in Highland Park, which is not a Highland whiskey. Confusing name, I know. Back to this. No, I want to save that one to quite close to the end. What are you? Right. Those who watch my channel for a while will know my opinion on sours. And I don't mean the shots. I think I actually prefer the shots to the beer style. Man, I've tried. Man, I have tried. I still need to try some Vault City. I want to try some Vault City at some point. I am apprehensive, nervous. I think if I try Vault City and I go, do you know what, I didn't like that, but like, if any more evidence was needed that I do not enjoy these, that is it. Ooh, new comment. All right, John, it's Charlie. That's Audrey Hepburn, ain't it? Yes, yes, it is. It is. Every single time I do one of these, which so far has been twice, I've needed somebody else to tell me who Audrey Hepburn is, because I'm the world's worst homosexual. Right, so, oh, more. Found Orkney Brewing's Clutie Dumpling in Aldi yesterday and tried for the first time while watching your review. Really quite an impressive ale, as far as gimmick ales go. Joe, actually, first of all, thank you very much. But also, if you want to learn how to make a Clutie Dumpling, there is a channel on YouTube called What's for Tea. Her voice is one of the most relaxing things you will ever hear in your life, and I will not do any more hype for that because I don't need to. Go check her channel out. She does just sort of like traditional Scottish recipes, and one of the most recent ones she did was Clutie Dumpling, and now I want to go and make one. I don't think I've ever actually had a Clutie Dumpling. I've had the Clutie Dumpling. Obviously, I've had the Clutie Dumpling fucking beer. I've done a video on it, but where am I going with this? There's a problem with live if your brain just suddenly stops working. Yeah, now I want to make a Clutie Dumpling. Anyway, back to this. So we're talking about sours. This is by ABC, Alphabet Brewing Company. It's called Florida Nan, and it's a key lime vegan milkshake IPA. All the adjuncts. I really dig the artwork because it's on drugs. There's this monkey, and it is out of its fucking mind on something, and there's this woman. Yeah, it's a woman, with like a key lime pie there, and whatever is going on in this monster truck, it's being driven by, oh, I'm going to be racist here, are they crocodiles or alligators? Maybe one of each? I don't know. Yeah, I got this because, for some reason, I had a weird craving for key lime pie. And I didn't want to make one, and you can't really buy, they're like, you know, it's a lime pie, but it's not a key lime pie. Because I'm a fucking snob like that, aren't I? So I saw this and I was like, do you know what? This might scratch that itch. It did. This, I think, is the closest that I got to a sour beer that I liked. It really was dancing on the borders, this one, between a sour and a pale ale. And there was a few times where I was like, am I liking this? I'm still drinking it. I think I'm liking this. So it was a weird one. It was an IPA, but I almost felt like it was underselling quite how mouth-puckeringly sour it was. But I enjoyed it. That's the thing. I'm not sure that you can pick these up anymore. I have seen a couple of other people covering them on like Instagram and other places like that. I mean, how could you resist the call of that animal, to be fair? If he was chatting you up in a club, and you'd run fucking miles, wouldn't you? I think I have been chatted up by fellas that have looked a lot like that, to be fair. So, interesting point on this one, actually. Despite the fact it says key lime pie, it's just lime on the back. Key limes are difficult to get your hands on. They're a bit more expensive. They're smaller, so the yield is smaller. It wouldn't surprise me if it was just standard lime in this. I have no basis for saying that, but you'd normally put a key lime, wouldn't you, if it was actual key limes in there. There is a difference. I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to get into a lime debate. Oh, tea. Fuck it, I'll finish it. Chug. Right. What should I do next? Let's go on to a cider. I still have a fair bit. Maybe I've overegged this a little bit. I don't know. We'll keep going. Why not? We're having fun. Well, I am. This is a cider. Before I smash myself in the face with the bottle. This is Oliver's Fine Cider. I had a notion when I first picked this up to do a side-by-side with a cheap and readily available cider and do like a, oh, isn't this so much better? I'm kind of glad I didn't, because this is pretty unmemorable. It was nice. I don't think I'd go out of my way to get it again, though. For some reason, I think I was just expecting something better or something else from it. I was expecting kind of like a bit more fireworky. It tasted like a good cider, and that's all I can tell you. It tasted like good alcoholic apples. Oliver's Fine Cider is part of a range. I mean, this particular one is a Pomona Rolling Blend, season of 2018, whatever the fuck that means. I'm not mad into my ciders. I like a cider from time to time, but I'm not like kind of like, way cider, you know. I have other loves in my ventricles, and the back labels are plain as it comes, which, to be honest, is kind of refreshing in the age of kind of like, we pick only the finest apples in fields tended by bare-breasted virgins, and I don't know why Julian Clary does the voiceover for them, but yeah, it's kind of nice not to have all the bullshit on it. Just be like, here's alcoholic apple juice, drink it. I think my expectations were the problem with this one. It was fine. You know, it was faultless. As a technical exercise in cider, it passes, but there was nothing more to it. So that's C for cider. Pop this down here. I'm going to fall all over these, aren't I, at some point? Do I have more tea? Hang on. I've got more milk. I think I poured too much milk for myself. Yeah, that's fine. Do I have? Yes. Yes. Oh boy, did I fuck that up. Get here. So, how's everyone doing? Sorry, headphone users. Just going to tidy up after myself, live. Don't mind me. Go over there. Oh man! Oh, it's everywhere. It's on the keyboard and everything. This is like an explosion in a tea factory. This is like one of those Twinings tasters just burst one day. I suppose it could have been worse. I could have dropped the entire pot on myself, couldn't it? So that's something. Oh, and now the comments come. Yeah. Right. Cool. Awesome. It's the last time I used props on one of these. Right. We're learning as we go. So where was I up to? I have never known that key limes are not just limes. Yeah, they're like a. I think they're also known as Floridian limes. What was that? And they're like sort of the size of a wolf's testicle, smaller than a normal lime. I don't know why I just said that. I've never cupped a wolf before. I have no basis for the size of wolf testicles. Anyway, best alcoholic drink you've gotten from Home Bargains. Go. I'm trying to think of what I've bought from Home Bargains. I suppose by default it would be the Cherryade stuff from Hooper's because it's the only thing I can remember buying from Home Bargains in the last few years. It's cold as well. I should make a journey to Home Bargains at some point. There's 10 of you watching. Something wrong with the world, there really is. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Hooper's alcoholic Cherryade because it's the only thing I can remember. I should probably nip along to Home Bargains at some point. There isn't one near me. Evening, what did I miss? Been busy smashing glass jars. Fine, we just had a small tea emergency. It's nothing to worry about. Really wish I hadn't sacked Mrs. Doyle now. Live TV, lol. It's not like you to spill things. It's not, is it? Moving on to things that I spilt down my throat in days gone by. For those of you joining us, by the way, I should quickly, I suppose, preface that I have not crushed all these in one night. These are like cans and bottles that I have kept to then later talk about. It's not, I'm fine. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not a professional. And yet people keep giving me a job. This is Fierce Beer. Mus. I love that name. It's not my favourite Fierce Beer. Although my favourite Fierce Beer is also my favourite beer of last year. These guys sort of filled the gap for me when Brewdog started going downhill. It's even up until like a few years ago, I was big on Team Brewdog, and then somewhere around kind of 2018, I kind of started noticing that they were. I think it was like a pint of Punk IPA, and I was like, "Has this changed? It seems a bit different." Maybe. And at first, I thought maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm having an off day with it or something like that. As it turns out, no, it wasn't just me, and it was one of those things that people started to notice. And I think you can kind of see it with the direction that they're going with kind of the Hazy Jane situation. Their core Hazy Jane now is sort of this diluted, flabby nonsense. But they also have OG Hazy, which is supposedly the original Hazy Jane, but they've like moved it off to the side, and their core Hazy Jane is now this kind of weird, cloudy shadow of what it's still an all right beer. It's okay, in a pinch, but it's not as good as it was. I think Brewdog's suffering a lot from their own reputation as much as anything else. But these guys, also an Aberdeen brewery, plug the gap for me because they're one of those breweries. They have a similar kind of like style to Brewdog in terms of kind of like, a reverence to beer and stuff like that, but they still give a fuck. I feel like I'm being a little bit harsh when I say that, but also I think people kind of get what I mean. Moose is their chocolate stout, and it's lovely. And they do lots of spin-offs of this. They do their Very Big Moose, which are their barrel-aged or high-strength ones, and they're all gorgeous. Since we're talking about Fierce as well, this particular one, it was okay. It was a little bit flat, but I think I've gotten used to things like their Chipotle stouts and their other beers like their VBMs, which are so potent and so thick and so strong that by comparison, this is always going to seem a bit nyeh. It's a grand session stout. It is, and it knocks spots off your standard midweek stout anyway, like Guinness or Belhaven Black. If you want to reach for a stout that you can like, I want something a bit special, a bit nicer tonight. Fantastic one. It would not sort of be picking up again, but I think I'd be more inclined to pick up one of their pales or one of their IPAs. I did sort of tease earlier, didn't I, that my favourite beer of this brewery was my favourite beer of last year. It's called Fancy Juice, and it's their double IPA, and it is fucking brilliant. It is really, 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 really good. And I At some point, I'm going to go and get some more cans. For some reason, they're not the easiest thing to find. I don't get why, because I feel like it's a bit of an undiscovered gem. I think if it had the kind of clout that putty does every year, where people go, "Oh my god, putty," I think it goes toe to toe with it. I do. But yeah, that's my favorite one of last year. Also, I initially did not realize it was called Fancy Juice. I thought it was called not that. What do we got here? Right, still things. Have you tried Blamnock 11 side-by-side taste test with the 10? I haven't. There's a new service that's going to be launching fairly soon. Lots of companies, businesses, pubs, etc., are getting more into their samples. You know, doing like tasting flights to send through the post and stuff like that. And there's going to be another one, and it's nameless. It's something quite generic, like the drink stuff. It's something stupid like that. It's not a very good name. They're going to be launching soon, and they do have a tasting pack for the Blamnock 10, which more Blamnock 10 is never a bad thing. The Blamnock 11, and the Samsara. So I might get that instead, because I can't keep dropping money on whiskies. I can't keep doing it. I will quickly say as well, I do have a Patreon support out there. This is not an advert. I'm just saying that I'm consciously aware that I do have that. I just haven't used it yet, which is something I brought up on my patrons fairly recently, being like, just to let you know, I've not actually touched this money yet, because I don't yet know what I want to use it on. So I should probably actually start looking into using that at some point, but I'm not going to drop it all on like one bottle of whiskey, because that's, I mean, it's kind of taking the piss, isn't it, really? It's kind of like, do you know what, I was going to talk about politics there again for a second. I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. Next, oh, go on. We teased it at the start, so why not? Hang on, tea break. On Instagram, New Year's Eve. Was it New Year's Eve? Was it New Year's Eve? It was New Year's Eve. Was it New Year's Eve? Or was it Christmas? It's one of the festivities where I was forced to be alone. Anyway, I know, singles here. I wanted to get myself some fizz. I quite like a fizzy wine from every once in a while. I just like to ponce around in a fur boa and nothing else, and shrill at the top of my lungs, lady of the house speaking. Neighbours love me, but I didn't want to drop all the change for a champagne, because in my view, champagne is overpriced. Because it is. People buy into, you know, the glamour and the glitz and the celebration side of things, and champagne is, unless something catastrophic happens, they're here to stay. You know, that reputation is not going, unless it turns out that, you know, linked to something appalling in the future, then pretty much safe as houses, you know. But there's a lot of alternatives out there in the sparkling wine world, and I was actually going to get my hands on it's a South African sparkling wine called Pongrats. Tried their rosé, delightful, genuinely really top-notch stuff. English sparkling wine is moving up in the world as well. This is something that I want to try, because it's method traditional, which basically means champagne made the same way as champagne, but the grapes can differ. It's outside of the Champagne region, but it's still a French sparkling wine. It's called Cremant. Might have come across it in the past. You might have heard of it. I think a lot of people have an idea that it's inferior in some way to champagne, just because it's cheaper. Right, let's put it this way. If you have a designer label, let's say a shirt, and you have another shirt that doesn't have the label, made identically, but you don't have the label, and you want to try and compete with the label, you're going to have to sell that shirt for cheaper to make it worth somebody buying. These tend to be cheaper purely because they kind of need to be in order to compete. I'm curious what would happen if they just went, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to charge the same amount of money. Would it have the opposite effect to what they're doing at the minute, which is everyone kind of goes, do you know what? It must be worth the money if they're charging that for it. Because there is that effect on pricing sometimes as well. It's why a lot of things are priced the way they are. A lot of things are priced the way they are because that's what they cost. You know, that's what they need to be. There are some things that are just priced just because they can get away with them. Reality of things. This was, do you know, it was cheap. It was cheap actually. I think it was £8 for a bottle of fizz. It's fucking lovely. It's not the it's not the best like sparkling wine I've had. I've been very lucky in that I've gotten to go to like wine shows and stuff like that. And I've gotten to try things like, what's the really fucking fancy one? Not Paul Roger, what is it? The one with the weird spiky badge. Dom Perignon, that's the one. Didn't care for it too much, if I'm being honest. It was all right, you know. I was there. I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to chuck it away, you know. It's just fucking £200 a fucking glass. I'll drink it, but you know, we tried some other stuff, and I was like, you know what? If they went, what do you want to take home today? We'll pay for it. The Dom would not. Well, actually, I'd have gone with the Dom and then probably stuck it on auction. That would have been a good thing to do. But if it was for drinking, it wouldn't have been that. There was a champagne there that was about quarter of the price. It was a vintage something. I can't remember. You know, I've got the bottle in my head, but I can't visualize the. No, but anyway, that one was lovely, and it was nowhere near as expensive. So the price doesn't necessarily factor into it. This was lovely. This was brioche, raspberries, blackcurrants, that kind of a thing. It also got me fucked up because I polished off the entire bottle in one night. I do not advise you do that, because this is 9 units in the bottle. I am over binge drinking. I really am. Partly because I just kind of can't get away with it anymore. Although actually, I still don't really get hit with hangovers. But I worry about what it does to my body. My body's not exactly a temple. Anyway, but there's little things you can do to try and look after yourself a little bit better. And despite what I do do try and drink sensibly. Which is why, you know, sometimes people might notice that, you know, when I'm reviewing whiskies, I'll pour like a tiny little bit and I'll have it with water and stuff like that. And I don't do back-to-back reviews, which is why the schedule can be a little bit inconsistent sometimes. Yeah, this was fantastic. It was Marks and Spencer's, I think. Of course it fucking was. Cremant de Bordeaux. Yeah, it was definitely M&S. M&S winemaker Sue Daniels. It's a brew style, suitable for vegans. And it's got all like food pairings and stuff like that on it. I did not have this with any food. I didn't tan it, but you know, I had a fair. Probably doing a games night, you know, you were having a lovely time. And I polished off an entire bottle of fizz. Again, not advocating that in any way, shape, or form. I kind of expected that to last me like 2-3 days. I just kind of like fire into it every once in a while. I'm like, oh, I'll have a bit of Cremant in the afternoon. Why not? That did not fucking happen. And I remember I did not drink for the rest of the week because I was like, that's a lot of units. You need to give your body a rest. So there we go. Anyone who says that I don't advocate responsible drinking, on balance, probably true. But next, we'll go back to a beer. We'll go back to an Edinburgh beer. Because I live in Edinburgh. That's how this works. Oh, missed a couple. Yes, more good images. I imagine that was about me dancing around in a feather boa. My New Year's Eve bubbly was just the Martini Prosecco. Good stuff. You know, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Martini do some perfectly competent work. Just because they're kind of like the market leader, I think a lot of people assume market leaders tend to be the worst. Like Tio Pepe when it comes to sherry. It's good sherry. Their Anrama, really good sherry. But their standard, also good sherry. What do we got here? Best alcohol-free ale. I've had lots of lager choices, but ale front has been a bit rubbish. Remember the Brax Porter being quite good. We got them in last year, part of the pub chain that I work for. And I had to do like a bit of a spiel for them because I occasionally do some stuff for work as well in front of the camera. Obviously not at the minute, but yeah, they sent along a few. The triple, I remember, did not do very well at all because it was just kind of a bit weird more than anything else. Yeah, the Brax Porter, really good. If I remember, it's a 0.0, so it's completely alcohol-free. I have yet to try the Whisky from Harveston. It's in the fridge. I actually planned on doing it for January. There's a couple of dry January things that are still in the fridge that I just never got round to. Kombucha is another one. I never found time to do either of them. So I still need to do like a couple of alcohol-free reviews at some point. So I'll be getting around to those at some point. Whisky might be a good one. One thing I have noticed, a lot of alcohol-free options out there at the minute. I've heard good things about the alcohol-free Go. Actually, if memory serves, I've had the alcohol-free Ghost Ship, and it was all right. Didn't knock the socks off, but it was all right. Right, moving on from alcohol-free to alcohol. Palozzi. This one's a weird one. I swear to God, this started off as a Pilsner. Or a Pilsner style, and it's migrated into something not quite the same. Bit of a weird story about this. A few years ago, for whatever reason, it was a beautiful day in Edinburgh. That wasn't the for whatever reason, although that is unusual, certainly. It was a beautiful day, and I was in St Andrew's Square, and I was just like, I just fancy a beer. To watch the sun and the fountain. I think that was before it broke. And yeah, so I went into, I think it was the Refinery, and I got a Palozzi in there, and it's, to this day, one of the nicest beers I've had. I think that was partly because of the setting, and I've been a huge fan of Palozzi ever since. Again, I've noticed it kind of declined a little bit from what it was to what it is now. Fun fact, actually, Palozzi and Thistley Cross, same company. We get their rep in quite a bit in various places that I work. It's kind of funny when they moved me from one site to another. He popped in one day and I was like, "Oh, you're here now," and I was like, "That's my name." People don't get that. I've worked in a lot of pubs in a relatively short space of time in Edinburgh through various shenanigans. But yeah, I thought I'd pick up a bottle of this, and I still enjoy it. It's a lovely, crisp, quite yeasty lager. But it's missing something that it used to have. There was like this bright element to it that I can't really put my finger on about it, which, I don't know, maybe I just got lucky and they just had a really good keg on that day or something. I don't know. But yeah, I remember Palozzi having been better. I don't know why. They'll probably turn around and be like, "It's exactly the fucking same. We've not changed anything. It's just you." And to be fair, I kind of hope they do turn around and be like, "It's just you. You're just a bit knackered now." And be like, "Fair enough." I think sometimes brands are a bit too friendly to reviewers and critics. I think if we say that something isn't as good as it used to be, sometimes they have a right to go, "It's exactly the fucking same. What are you on about? Shut up." I don't know about any. I mean, there's some reviewers that might not quite like that, but personally, I'd have a lot of respect for that if they turned around when nothing's changed. Up yours. Because there is a time and a place for people defending their work. And I think when somebody is openly saying, "I don't think it's as good as it used to be," and if it is the case that nothing's changed, defending that, there's a place for that. I still enjoy this. And I'm glad that Palozzi have gotten rid of their bunk line, because they had this weird experiment where they had 6 beers that were all called bunk, but they were all different styles. It was very confusing, and nobody knew where they were up to. And I can totally see that they got a lot of complaints about, oh, this used to be a brown ale, but now it's a sour ale. And it turns out that they were both just with the same name. It was a really weird marketing decision, and it didn't really work. So they did what everyone else ultimately did and had a beer with a distinct name that is that style, but then another beer with a different name that is a different style, rather than having the same name for 12 completely different beers. Because that was madness. They were lovely beers, but yeah, the naming convention was not a good idea. I'm still enjoying this. I'll still buy it. I'm kind of curious to know if it's just me. Is it just that my taste buds are getting a bit knackered as they get older? I want to quickly say as well, I don't think that I'm an old man by any stretch of the imagination, but it's, these things can happen, or your palate can change, or your tastes can change over time. That's a thing. Oh, we've got more comments. Alcohol-free pilsners are a good option. They usually make up for the lack of percentage with a pleasant bit of hops. I've been very pleasantly surprised with a lot of like the lagery, pilsnery options in terms of alcohol-free. I have been buying the Tenant Zero. I've still got some in the fridge at the minute. After the last batch that I bought another box. I've actually been quite enjoying them. A little odd. I quite like that weird biscuity malty flavour that a lot of people might be like, I don't know about that. I actually quite dig it. It's a very distinct flavour, and I just kind of like it, to be honest, for want of a better way of putting it. The Australia Double Zero, I remember that was one of the most surprisingly accurate when it comes to like alcohol-free beers mimicking an alcohol beer. I remember that one being scarily close. Right, we've got 3 more things, and then I will call it a night. I've definitely padded this out with plenty of rambling, so God knows how long 3 more things will take. We could be here for hours yet, lads. I hope not, because that tea, that ultimately was not a very good idea. Let's go German. So Rothhaus Pils. This is a fantastic Pilsner. I first got introduced to this back when I was working in the Footlights, I think it was. They would stock a small range of German beers because they had some German clientele that would come in for like German football matches. German. So we kept these in, and I was like, I've never seen those around before, because I was still kind of like getting to grips with international beers and just kind of the range of what is out there. And I thought, I'll buy one of these, see what it's like. It knocked socks off. German beer, as a general rule, like proper German beer, is excellent. They have a fantastic drinking culture over there, which is not just they have a good time with it, but there's also there's a culture behind it that isn't just getting completely wallied and falling asleep in the middle of the street and getting carted away by the police. Unless there's maybe something that I've missed, which is entirely possible. I kind of like the weird sort of MS Paint Cubist design on it as well. There's just something weird about that. It's kind of clunky and dumb that I'm kind of into it. It's refreshing, it's light, it's citrusy, it's everything that you want from just a crisp, clean Pilsner. I did recently, somebody else told me about, on a lot of these bottles, there's like a mark at the top. It almost seems like a tide mark. I remember asking, I think it was on another stream last week, not one of mine, but somebody else's, and I was like, does anybody know what that's about? I can't remember who answered me, but apparently it's to do with, I think when they're recycling the glass, how it's joined together. I might be completely misremembering that, actually. Or it's something to do with machinery or something, but it's not just what I thought it was, which is just random filth accumulating at the top. Because when I first saw it in like the cellar of a pub, and I was like, oh, these have just been not, they've been here a while, or they've not been kept very well. And I started seeing it on bottles all over the place, and I was like, no, that's something that's on the bottle all the time. Why is that? And I did get an answer, and then I kind of forgotten it, and then kind of half told you the story, but not really, because I can't quite remember it. So that was interesting, wasn't it? Rothaus, lovely. 2 more. Do we do beer or whiskey? I'll finish on the beer. Quickly catch up with comments as well. Andrew J. You referred to one of your videos as Punk IPA becoming less good. Do you have any idea what happened to it? Brewdog is easy to hate. I have a lot of soft spot for nostalgic reasons. I do wonder if it is nostalgia as much as anything else, but also I remember Punk IPA being almost difficult to drink because of this kind of weird, piney, like lime zesty kind of bitterness that it had. That always sticks in my mind as like the signature of Punk IPA when I would drink, because I used to drink a lot of it in Aberdeen. We had a really good relationship with the Brewdog Brewery because they were still kind of fledgling. You know, people knew them. They were getting on their feet. They were getting a lot of traction, but you know, they were still very kind of like set to their heartland kind of a thing. You know, home is where Aberdeen is kind of a thing. But do you know, even when I came to Edinburgh, I remember, like, you know, the pint, it tasted the same, and then just over time, I remember it kind of just, the bitterness almost disappeared. It was like it was trying to like comb its hair, you know. Which, I mean, if you're called Punk IPA, that's the last thing that you want. But I remember they used to describe it back when they did the first redesign. They described it as spiky and tropical. And I remember it being really good descriptors for that beer, because it was like somebody getting a pineapple and like stabbing your throat with it. There was something aggressive about the beer, and I loved that. As it turns out, I'm the most vanilla man in the bedroom, but I mean, based off of my drinking choices, anyone's guess. Part 2, the Cowgate Bar was unique / fun when it first opened, and a place I enjoyed when I first moved to Edinburgh. They also did a tap takeover by my favourite brew pub in Montreal. Yeah, they do a lot of tap takeovers, actually. They are still really good with championing other breweries. They do still do their legwork, and I'm not saying they don't do good work. You know, I mean, they're doing their kind of like buy one get one tree thing at the minute, aren't they? Where you buy a Punk IPA and they plant a tree. They're going much more eco now than their original vision, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it. Yeah, I want Brewdog to carry on being good, and I kind of feel like it's almost. I think part of the problem might be that it's trying to fulfill quotas more than it is about making the beer. And I get it, because they have such a well-established name now, and they're stocked pretty much everywhere, and loads of people drink them, and they have indeed made craft beer for the people. You know, loads of people drink it now. It's not just people that look like me, for want of a better way of putting it. You know, it is mainstream beer. It's still good quality mainstream beer. I'm not saying it's crap. I want to emphasize that. I'm not saying it's crap, but it's not what it used to be. And I think that's because I had such a love for the brewery. I did. You know, I love the brewery. I love the brand. I wanted to work for them for years. There's only so many times you can be told to fuck off before you get the message. But yeah, something somewhere slipped. And actually, I think I can chart when I first noticed it was a problem. It was when they released their first incarnation of Indie Pale Ale, which was this weird product that didn't really fit in their lineup because it was a pale ale, but they already had a pale ale. But it was supposed to be a really accessible beer, but they also already had a core lager. I don't even think it was called Kingpin back then. I think it wasn't Lost, it wasn't Kingpin. It was This Is Lager. I swear they just change the name every once in a while just to keep it going. But that was like when I first noticed they'd made a massive slip up, because that beer was not good. It wasn't. And then when they released the second version of it, rather than take ownership for it themselves, their reason for it was that they let the staff over Christmas brew it. it was a real like throwing someone else under the bus apology. And I remember reading it, I was like, oh, I don't like that. That's not good. That's completely separate from the beer, but I remember that kind of sticking in my head. I was like, ooh, that's no. Your company, you take responsibility for the product, regardless of who made it. The buck stops with you. So that was them trying to save face by blaming somebody under them, which is never a good sign, is it? But yeah, that was like the first time I noticed like one of their beers that failed, for want of a better way of putting it. I think it still exists, actually, the Indie Pale. Oh, actually, it might not anymore. I don't think I've seen it kicking around recently, but yeah, that was the first one that I noticed where I was like, this isn't good. And then I think I started kind of like being a bit more, I don't know if it was that I was being a bit more critical with my drinking of Brewdog, or that I just also started noticing that some of these are starting to slip a little bit. Right, finish with the beer. That's what we said, didn't we? Because we need to try and wrap this up before bedtime. I don't have a bedtime. So, sometimes when people say that they are just round the corner from a brewery, what they normally mean is about a 45-minute drive away. And same with distilleries as well. Sometimes when they say that they're near to a distillery, they mean that, a bus ride away or something like that. When I say I'm near this distillery, I literally mean I go and walk down the road. This is, I've covered it on the channel actually a little while ago. This is a boutique sample. I don't know if you'll be able to make that out actually. Is it going to focus? Might not. Not really. This is 27-year-old North British. Batch 3 single grain Scotch whisky, 56.3%. This is my first time trying North British. It is very difficult to get your hands on an official bottling of North British, and there's a good reason for that. They don't exist. It's indie or bust. So there's no kind of like comparing their bottling to somebody else's. North British is a fucking ugly distillery. It is. It's like, imagine the industrial zone in Crystal Maze decided to just grow and slowly swallow up a piece of countryside. It's this massive monolith of pipes and steam and trucks, and it's an ugly industrial monstrosity, for want of a better way of putting it. Its sole purpose is to churn out lots of cheap grain whiskey fast. So it's to their credit that a lot of what they produce is bottled by indies and is loved. North British bottlings tend to sell pretty well amongst the indies. Diageo do miss a trick by not bottling them as part of like their flora and fauna or something like that, because if they did that, I swear people would be like, ooh, yeah, okay. The flora and faunas in Diageo, they're kind of like a celebration of their under the radar distilleries. I'm not sure if in the age of the internet there's such a thing as under the radar necessarily, because people talk about these things all the time. But Chris, I'll spot your comment, I'll get to it in a second. But yeah, North British is fantastic. It's how to think of Scotch grain whiskey. It's kind of like Scottish bourbon, for want of a better way of putting it. And the main difference is instead of using malted barley, they can use other grain sources. Corn is an example. Other grains are available. I'm kind of going a bit blank at the minute. I did not prepare for this very well at all. But yeah, it was a lovely whiskey. It was a little bit aggressive, but it's also strong. You've got to remember that. My overriding memory of this was it was quite spicy, more than anything else. I kind of wish I'd picked up a bottle. I will be looking at North British bottlings at some point, not as like a lineup or anything, just like for something to have on the shelf, because I just think it's quite good to have a grain whiskey in. Grain whisky is definitely overlooked. Frankly, long may it continue, because those of us that know about it, we're able to get it pretty fucking cheap. So if you're needing something that's, low cost, you're having a bit of a tight fix, but you also kind of want a whiskey, grain's the way to go, baby. Yeah, plus, you can get something that's like 27, 30 years old for peanuts. And age is not the beginning and the end, but 30 years in a cask, even a knackered cask, is going to make a big difference. So, right, a couple more comments, and then I'll get to the last. Sorry to go back to the Bladnock again. No need to apologise. But if you remember what the company... sorry, have I misread that? But if you remember what the company that will be doing the Bladnock samples, I'd like to know. I did a quick Google and found nothing. Do you know what? They keep coming up on... Oh, actually, no. I know how to find it. 2 seconds. It'll be in... Ooh, will it be in here, actually? I've been getting emails from them. No. This is interesting, isn't it? Me going through my emails. Oh, no. Updates. 2 announcements. Here we are. They're called the Sample Guys. And their logo is in the SS Nixon 1 font, if that helps filter that one out. But that's their name, the Sample Guys. They haven't launched yet. They're still taking names at the moment, but when they do, they'll be doing like tasting packs and stuff like that. And they have some interesting stock by the looks of it so far. So again, it's a good way of trying things that, you know how samples work. You don't need me to sell that to you, I'm sure. With apologies for overuse of options. That yawn was incidental, I beg your pardon. I quite like their hot chocolate. You don't need to apologise. The last North British I had was so coconutty. I think I recall having much in the way of coconut. Again, because there's no baseline for a lot of these, they can kind of be anything. They can be a bit chameleonic sometimes, these ones that kind of like are indie only bottlings. 25-year-old second fill. I bet I wasn't too expensive either, was it? I'm not asking for like a receipt or anything like that, but these ones tend to be a bit of a bargain, don't they? And again, long may that continue. Right, I can tell I've been talking for over an hour now because I'm starting to get a bit of a sore throat. I swear it's all the talking, it's not anything more nefarious, I'm sure. So the last beer of the night is again one that I covered on the last live stream, but by that point I'd already polished off the new bonds, so I didn't really talk much about it. I think we had a chat about coconut at one point, but this is part of a range that I'm really digging at the minute. It is the adjunct monster to end all adjunct monsters. It's by a Munzen. I had a bit of a Munzen before. I think one of the ones that I had, I think it was with Charlie actually, and it was that one with the really weird one where you like pull the lid off. It was a bizarre can. I seem to remember that one being, it was all right. Yeah, it was all right. It was alright. But this is part of their dessert in a can line. Bloody hell. For context, 25 years old. I suppose I should quickly 70 cl, yeah, Paul, just to fill people in as well. That wasn't like a sample, that was a bottle. Yeah, I don't need to tell you that's a good deal. If he comes back in now and goes, it was about a teaspoon's worth, but ignore me. But in the meantime, dessert in a can. This is part of a line of various adjunct heavy beers. They have all been bloody glorious. I've been a big fan of their barrel-aged peanut butter jelly donut circle jerk fucking trifle blowjob, whatever the bloody hell it's called. They do this where it's kind of like multiple things smashed together to create flavor. This particular one is coconut choc chip cookie. 70 centilitres, 50 quid, 25 years old. I would imagine no longer available, but if you can find it, go for it. You can still kind of smell it. It's got a bit hand creamy actually now, because obviously this was a few days old. I probably shouldn't do that really, but this was fantastic. It was a coconut monster as well. I can see why people have guests on now. This is hard going on the vocal cords. Oh, I've not done much public speaking in a good long while. I also love the artwork on this. Just like it reminds me of, was it when they were in Homer's stomach? I can't quite remember now. It was a cartoon, and it was two people shrank down, and they were in someone's stomach, and it was like candy ball, like bits of candy everywhere. That was a terrible little story, wasn't it? Stick to the beer, John. This is delightful. I can't say that I got much beyond sort of chocolate and coconut, but as a Bounty Bar beer, this was fucking stunning. These are also, as well as being quite sweet, flavor heavy, they're also really good brews. I got my dad to try the peanut butter jam donut fucking Krispy Kreme circle jerk one a while ago. And he, like, you know, he's a Guinness drinker, and he tried that and he was like, that's really nice, but I couldn't have too much. So it's sort of the Sauterne of beer, really. I tend to drink this out of a whiskey glass, and I'll make it last the night, because it is one of those ones where you kind of need to sip it because it's so thick and rich. If you drink it like you would, like, you know, a Guinness or something like that, you're gonna kind of feel a bit sick. You're gonna kind of feel like you got home from trick-or-treating and ate the whole fucking bag. Says the man that baked and ate an entire flapjack tray bake in the last 24 hours. I did do that. I don't feel proud of myself. But where was I going with this? Coconut. Explosion of coconut, and I have little more to say other than that. The range is fantastic. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on more of them. There's a mint ice cream one out there, I think, at the minute. I don't know if I hallucinated that in my delirium from crushing on this, but I think there's a mint ice cream one out there somewhere. I need to get my hands on it at some point. Oh, that is a clear table. I will say it's not everything I have under the sink, but I didn't want to do the whole lot in one night, and I'm kind of glad, because I think I am actually starting to lose my voice a little bit. Yeah, I don't know how teachers cope. I don't. Well, they don't, do they? Last one from Paul. Local bottle shop to me, Nichols and Perks. Never heard of it. Could always see if they have a bit of stock, I suppose, but I mean, if it was a few years ago, I'd imagine that nectar has long since flown the building. I'm going to wrap this up now and go and have some lemon and honey tea. Thank you very much for joining in tonight. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for watching. A lot of you stuck it out for the full hour and near enough hour and a half, so thank you. You're brave or very bored. I can't really tell. Hey, it can be both. Right, I will be doing another one of these maybe next week. In terms of live stream, I'll be doing another one on Saturday. We're talking about traditional beers, or trad. Basic idea with that one, sort of more along the lines of this. I'm gonna go and see if anyone else is interested in joining me on Saturday. That tends to be when most people do their own live streams and stuff like that, so it could just be me. But it'd be nice to see other people along for that as well, if at all possible, to kind of talk about, you know, I think partly I wanted to try and champion some bottled ales. So it'd be nice if everyone kind of did like a show and tell sort of a thing. That's the idea I've got in my head. But as with a lot of the best laid plans, God knows what will happen on the night. It'll all be shite on the night. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for joining in, guys. And I shall see you guys soon, I guess. I need a proper ending for these. It's not goodbye.